You are shivering in a damp cave 60,000 years ago, watching a Neanderthal with a shattered jaw refuse to lay down and die. They violently chew a toxic bark that should poison them. What did ancient humans actually understand about the invisible chemical warfare happening inside the lethal plants around them? How did a supposedly primitive mind invent the foundation of modern pharmacology without a single test tube? You assume the birth of medicine was a lucky accident. You picture a starving hunter eating a random leaf. Over thousands of generations, a few beneficial coincidences were passed down around a primitive campfire to form a basic healing tradition. That is the standard narrative taught in modern history books. But the real answer is far stranger. Why do you assume your ancient ancestors were merely guessing? Look closely at the plaque fossilized on that Neanderthal jawbone. It comes from the El Cidrón cave in northern Spain. In 2017, paleogeneticist Alan Cooper analyzed the DNA trapped in this ancient dental calculus and found something impossible. The sick individual had been consuming toxic poplar bark. They also ate a specific green mold. Why would a prehistoric hominid purposefully eat foul-tasting fungus? They were self-medicating with naturally occurring penicillin. They understood their medicinal environment with astonishing precision. This was not blind foraging, but a highly calculated medical intervention designed to kill a massive bacterial infection before it reached the brain. It forces you to completely rethink the timeline of human intelligence. How did they figure out the exact correct dosage without poisoning themselves? The secret lies in a biological phenomenon called zoopharmacognosy. Animals possess an innate ability to detect medicinal compounds. When chimpanzees are infected with intestinal worms, they deliberately seek out and consume rough, hairy aspilia leaves to physically scrape out the parasites. They do not chew these leaves for nutrition. They swallow them completely whole. What compels a primate to suddenly change its eating habits during a sickness? Look at the widespread historical practice of eating raw dirt. You probably view swallowing clay as a desperate act. For centuries, indigenous populations across the globe regularly consumed specific smectite clays before eating highly toxic wild potatoes or bitter acorns. The clay physically neutralizes the plant toxins in the stomach. They practically invented the principles of poison control centers. Do you still think their daily survival was pure luck? For 99.9% of human history, your ancestors relied on this instinct. They watched the wild animals carefully. A sick bear digging up a specific fern root became a crucial medical demonstration for the watchful hunter. They combined this deep observation with complex language. They transformed isolated survival into a deliberate human science. Did you think early clinics looked anything like modern hospitals? Consider the frozen corpse of Otzi, the Iceman. He died in the Alps over 5,000 years ago. Tied to his leather clothing were pieces of the birch polypore fungus, which contains powerful chemical compounds that are highly toxic to human whipworms. Otzi was carrying a carefully prepared prehistoric pharmacy. He was actively treating his chronic stomach parasites. How many generations of rigorous observation did it take to identify that exact mushroom? You assume modern pharmacology has completely outgrown these wild roots. You trust the sterile blister packs sitting in your medicine cabinet. Over 70% of all new drugs introduced recently were derived entirely from natural biological products found in the wild. Evolution had a different plan. Your cutting-edge antibiotics are highly synthesized versions of ancient survival. Are you truly as disconnected from the forest as you deeply believe? Anthropologists are now returning to isolated indigenous tribes. They want to study their deep plant knowledge. In the Amazon, the Matsis people burn their skin to apply the toxic venom of the giant monkey frog directly into the fresh wound. It triggers a violent physiological purge. This intense biological reaction completely resets their immune system.
When modern science looks for a chemical breakthrough, where do they ultimately go?
They go straight back to the suffocating jungle. They follow the exact same trails walked by prehistoric healers. Your body doesn't know the difference between a fully synthetic laboratory molecule and a naturally occurring botanical alkaloid. It simply responds to the chemical key fitting into the biological lock. The genius of early medicine was recognizing those invisible keys. Do you see the profound brilliance hidden in their unorthodox methods? Ancient healers operated entirely on ruthless empirical evidence. They cataloged the botanical world through immense tragedy. Every toxic berry that killed a foraging child was permanently recorded into the oral history of the surviving tribe. Every bitter root was celebrated. It was an epic experiment conducted on the human body itself. How many nameless pioneers died so you could swallow a painkiller today? You owe your very existence to their dangerous curiosity. They mapped the molecular universe without ever seeing a single molecule. Modern scientists are merely reading the microscopic chemical footnotes of a vast encyclopedia written by brilliant cave-dwelling botanists. You look back at them as uneducated brutes wrapped in animal skins. But here is the twist. Did you know they possessed a pharmaceutical intuition that modern humanity has almost entirely lost? You stand in a bright pharmacy surrounded by synthetic cures. You assume you are at the pinnacle of scientific achievement. You are just shivering in a damp cave 60,000 years ago, watching a Neanderthal with a shattered jaw refuse to lay down and die.